In a life full of challenges and difficulties, protection and peace are things that people always seek. In this article, we will explore Psalms in the Bible that share common themes of protection and peace, offering insights and encouragement to those seeking comfort and hope in life. Part 1, Psalm 46. Peace in God's strength. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, although the earth gives way, and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her, she will not fall. God will help her at the break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease. To the ends of the earth, he breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." Psalm 46 is one of the most well-known and beloved psalms in the Bible. It's often remembered for its opening lines, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." God is refuge and strength. The psalm begins with a strong declaration of God's protective presence in the lives of believers. It emphasizes that God is not only a place of refuge, but also a source of strength. This sets the tone for the entire psalm, emphasizing trust and reliance on God in times of trouble. Imagery of nature and chaos. The psalmist uses vivid imagery to describe chaos and upheaval in the world. The earth gives way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, depict catastrophic events beyond human control. These images symbolize the unpredictability and instability of life. The city of God. In verses 4-7, the focus shifts to the city of God, which is often interpreted as a symbol of God's presence among his people. The city remains steadfast and secure, even amid chaos and upheaval. This reinforces the idea of God's protection and presence in times of trouble. The voice of God. Verse 6 introduces a powerful image of God's voice causing the earth to tremble. This highlights God's sovereignty and authority over creation. Despite the chaos and turmoil in the world, God's voice brings order and stability. "Be still and know that I am God," perhaps one of the most quoted verses in the entire psalm. Verse 10 offers a message of comfort and reassurance. It calls for trust and surrender to God's sovereignty. The command to be still doesn't imply passivity, but rather a quiet confidence in God's power and control. The Lord of hosts. The psalm concludes with a declaration of God's supremacy over all nations. The phrase, "The Lord of hosts is with us," emphasizes God's presence and protection. It serves as a reminder that God is not just a passive observer, but actively involved in the affairs of the world. Overall, Psalm 46 is a powerful expression of faith and trust in God's sovereignty amid chaos and uncertainty. It encourages believers to find refuge and strength in God, knowing that he is in control of all things. Psalm 46 offers several benefits to those who listen, reflect on, and apply its message. Comfort and assurance. In times of trouble or uncertainty, Psalm 46 provides comfort and assurance by emphasizing God's presence as a refuge and source of strength. It reminds believers that they can find security and peace in God, even when the world around them is in chaos. Strength and faith. Through its vivid imagery and declarations of God's sovereignty, Psalm 46 strengthens faith by reinforcing the belief that God is in control of all things. It encourages believers to trust in God's power and goodness, even in the face of adversity. Encouragement to trust God. The Psalms call to, "Be still and know that I am God," serves as a reminder to trust in God's plan and timing. It encourages believers to surrender their anxieties and concerns to God, knowing that He is ultimately in charge and will work all things for their good. Perspective shift. By focusing on God's greatness and faithfulness, Psalm 46 helps shift perspective away from the challenges and trials of life. It encourages believers to view their circumstances through the lens of God's sovereignty and eternal purposes, leading to a sense of peace and hope. Inspiration for worship. Many believers find inspiration for worship and praise in the words of Psalm 46. Its declarations of God's power and majesty prompt awe and reverence, leading to heartfelt worship and adoration. Guidance for prayer. Psalm 46 provides believers with words to express their prayers and petitions to God. It serves as a model for approaching God with honesty, trust, and confidence, knowing that He hears and cares for His people. Overall, Psalm 46 offers spiritual nourishment, encouragement, and guidance for navigating life's challenges with faith and trust in God. It reminds believers of God's steadfast presence and power, bringing comfort and assurance in every circumstance. Part 2, Psalm 91. Sustained protection from God. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in whom I trust, surely He will save you. From the fowler's snare, and from the deadly pestilence, He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes, and see the punishment of the wicked. If you say, "The Lord is my refuge," and you make the Most High your dwelling, no harm will overtake you. No disaster will come near your tent, for He will command His angels regarding you, to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent. Because He loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him, and show him my salvation. Psalm 91 is often referred to as the Psalm of Protection, or the Safety Psalm, due to its emphasis on God's divine protection and care for those who trust in Him. Verses 1-2, dwelling in the shelter of the Most High, the psalm begins with a declaration of trust in God's protection. Those who dwell in the shelter of the Most High and abide in His shadow are depicted as finding security and rest. This imagery suggests intimacy and closeness with God, symbolizing a deep relationship of trust and dependence. Verses 3-4, God is protector. These verses use vivid imagery to describe God's protective care. God is likened to a refuge and fortress, providing shelter and defense against harm. The image of God's wings symbolizes His nurturing and protective presence, offering refuge and security to His people. Verses 5-8, assurance of deliverance. The psalmist expresses confidence in God's ability to deliver His people from various dangers and threats. Whether it be pestilence, plague, or warfare, God's faithful ones need not fear, for He will protect and rescue them. This section emphasizes the comprehensive nature of God's protection, covering all aspects of life. Verses 9-10. Trust in God's promises. These verses underscore the importance of trust and faithfulness in God's promises. By making the Most High their dwelling place, believers can rest assured of His protection and deliverance. The imagery of evil not befalling and no plague coming near serves as a reassurance of God's faithfulness to His covenant with His people. Verses 11-13. Angelic protection. Here, the psalmist describes God's use of angels as agents of protection for His people. Angels are depicted as powerful guardians, keeping watch over believers and shielding them from harm. This imagery highlights the supernatural aspect of God's protection, showing His care extends even to the realm of unseen spiritual forces. Verses 14-16. God's response to faith. The psalm concludes with a direct message from God, affirming His commitment to those who trust in Him. God promises to deliver, protect, and honor those who love Him and acknowledge His name. This section reaffirms the reciprocal nature of the relationship between God and His people, emphasizing His faithfulness to those who remain faithful to Him. Overall, Psalm 91 offers profound reassurance and encouragement to believers, reminding them of God's unfailing protection and care. It invites readers to trust in God's promises and dwell in His presence, finding security and peace amid life's uncertainties and dangers. Psalm 91 offers several spiritual and emotional benefits to those who meditate on its words and apply its principles to their lives. Divine protection. One of the central themes of Psalm 91 is God's promise of protection for those who dwell in His shelter and abide in His shadow. Believers find assurance that God is their refuge and fortress, shielding them from harm and danger. Peace of mind. By affirming God's faithfulness and power to protect His people, Psalm 91 provides a sense of peace and security. It reassures believers that they can trust in God's care and provision, even in the midst of life's uncertainties and dangers. Freedom from fear. The psalmist repeatedly emphasizes that those who trust in God need not fear various threats, including pestilence, plague, and warfare. Psalm 91 offers liberation from fear by instilling confidence in God's ability to deliver His people from all harm. Spiritual strength. Through its imagery of God as a refuge, fortress, and shield, Psalm 91 strengthens believers spiritually. It reminds them of their identity as children of God and encourages them to place their trust wholly in Him, finding strength in His presence and protection. Assurance of God's presence. Psalm 91 assures believers of God's constant presence in their lives. The imagery of God's wings and angels watching over His people reinforces the idea that God is always near, offering comfort and companionship in every circumstance. Encouragement to trust God's promises. By recounting God's faithfulness in delivering His people from various dangers, Psalm 91 encourages believers to trust in God's promises. It serves as a reminder that God is faithful to His word and will never abandon those who put their trust in Him. Inspiration for prayer and worship. Many believers find inspiration for prayer and worship in the words of Psalm 91. Its declarations of God's protection and care prompt gratitude and praise, leading to a deeper intimacy with God. Overall, Psalm 91 offers a message of hope, assurance, and trust in God's unfailing protection and care. It provides comfort in times of trouble, peace in the midst of fear, and strength for the journey of faith. Part 3, Psalm 121. God's protection and guidance. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, He who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. Psalm 121 is a beloved psalm that expresses trust in God's providential care and protection. Verse 1-2, lift up my eyes to the hills. The psalmist begins by lifting their eyes to the hills, symbolic of seeking help from God. This sets the tone of reliance on God for assistance and guidance, acknowledging that true help comes from Him alone. Verse 3-4, God is the protector. These verses affirm God's role as the protector of His people. The psalmist declares that God will not allow their foot to slip or sleep to overtake them, emphasizing God's vigilant care and watchfulness over His children. Verse 5-6, the Lord is your keeper. Here, the psalmist reassures the reader that the Lord is their keeper. This imagery conveys the idea of God as a guardian who watches over His people day and night, preserving them from all harm. Verse 7-8, God's ever-present protection. The psalmist affirms God's unwavering presence and protection, stating that the Lord will keep them from all evil and preserve their soul. This verse underscores the comprehensive nature of God's care, extending beyond physical protection to the preservation of the soul. Verse 1-8, a declaration of trust. Throughout the psalm, there's a strong declaration of trust in God's faithfulness and reliability. The repetition of phrases such as, the Lord is your keeper, and the Lord will keep you, reinforces the psalmist's unwavering confidence in God's ability to protect and preserve His people. Context of pilgrimage. Psalm 121 is believed to have been used by pilgrims journeying to Jerusalem for religious festivals. The imagery of looking to the hills may have referred to the hills surrounding Jerusalem, where the temple, the symbol of God's presence, was located. Thus, the psalm would have provided comfort and assurance to travelers, reminding them of God's guidance and protection on their journey. Universal application. While Psalm 121 may have originated in the context of pilgrimage, its message of trust in God's protection has universal application. It speaks to believers in all times and places, offering comfort and assurance that God is with them, watching over them, and keeping them safe. Overall, Psalm 121 is a beautiful expression of trust in God's providential care and protection. It encourages believers to look to God for help in times of need and to trust in His faithfulness to guide and guard them on life's journey. Psalm 121 offers several spiritual and practical benefits to those who meditate on its words and apply its principles to their lives. Assurance of God's protection. One of the central themes of Psalm 121 is the assurance of God's protection over His people. By declaring that the Lord is their keeper who never slumbers nor sleeps, the psalm instills confidence in God's constant vigilance and care. Comfort in times of trouble. Psalm 121 provides comfort to believers facing trials and difficulties. The psalmist's affirmation of God's presence and protection serves as a source of solace, reminding readers that they are not alone in their struggles. Freedom from fear and anxiety. Through its emphasis on God's watchful care, Psalm 121 offers liberation from fear and anxiety. Believers can find peace knowing that God is their protector and sustainer, regardless of the challenges they may face. Encouragement for trusting in God. The psalm encourages readers to place their trust in God's faithfulness and reliability. By lifting their eyes to the hills and acknowledging God as their helper, believers are inspired to rely on His strength and guidance in all circumstances. Empowerment for daily living. Psalm 121 provides practical encouragement for daily living. By recognizing God as the source of their help and protection, believers are empowered to face each day with confidence and assurance, knowing that they are under His watchful care. Inspiration for worship and prayer. Many believers find inspiration for worship and prayer in the words of Psalm 121. Its declarations of God's protection and provision prompt gratitude and praise, leading to a deeper intimacy with God. Guidance for pilgrimage and journey. Historically, Psalm 121 was likely used by pilgrims journeying to Jerusalem for religious festivals. It provided them with assurance and guidance as they traveled, reminding them of God's presence and protection along the way. Overall, Psalm 121 offers a message of hope, assurance, and trust in God's unwavering care and protection. It provides comfort in times of trouble, strength for the journey, and encouragement to trust in God's faithfulness. Part 4, Psalm 23. God's guidance and protection in everyday life. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths. For his name's sake, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me. In the presence of my enemies, you anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Psalm 23 is perhaps one of the most well-known and beloved passages in the Bible, offering comfort, guidance, and assurance to countless believers throughout the ages. Verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. This opening verse establishes the central metaphor of the psalm: God as a shepherd and the believer as his sheep. The imagery conveys care, guidance, and provision. By declaring that I shall not want, the psalmist affirms their trust in God's provision for all their needs. Verse 2, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. Here, the psalmist describes the care and guidance of the shepherd. Green pastures and quiet waters symbolize rest, refreshment, and tranquility. The imagery suggests that God provides nourishment and sustenance for the soul. Verse 3, he restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. This verse highlights God's role in spiritual renewal and guidance. The shepherd restores the soul, leading the believer in paths of righteousness for his own glory. It emphasizes God's commitment to the well-being and spiritual growth of his people. Verse 4, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. This verse acknowledges the reality of difficult times and trials. The valley of the shadow of death represents life's darkest moments. Yet, the believer finds courage and comfort in God's presence and protection. The imagery of the shepherd's rod and staff symbolizes guidance, protection, and discipline. Verse 5, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. This verse depicts God's abundant provision and blessing. Despite the presence of enemies, God provides a feast and anoints the believer's head with oil, symbols of honor, abundance, and joy. Verse 6, surely goodness and loving kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The psalm concludes with a declaration of faith and confidence in God's faithfulness. The believer trusts in God's unfailing goodness and mercy, both in this life and in eternity. The ultimate hope is to dwell in God's presence forever. Overall, Psalm 23 offers a profound expression of faith, trust, and dependence on God as the caring and faithful shepherd. It speaks to the believer's deepest needs for provision, guidance, protection, and ultimately, the assurance of eternal life in God's presence. Psalm 23 brings numerous benefits to those who meditate on its message and apply its principles to their lives. Comfort in times of trouble. Psalm 23 offers profound comfort to individuals facing challenges, grief, or uncertainty. Its imagery of God as a caring shepherd who provides for, protects, and guides his sheep instills a sense of peace and security even in the midst of life's trials. Assurance of God's provision. By portraying God as a shepherd who leads his sheep to green pastures and still waters, Psalm 23 assures believers of God's provision for their physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. It encourages trust in God's faithfulness to supply what is necessary for life and sustenance. Guidance and direction. The psalmist's declaration that God leads them in paths of righteousness offers guidance and direction for believers navigating life's complexities. By trusting in God's leading, individuals can make decisions with confidence, knowing that God's ways lead to goodness and fulfillment. Fearlessness in the face of adversity. The psalmist's affirmation, "I will fear no evil, for you are with me," encourages believers to face challenges and dangers with courage and confidence. The assurance of God's presence and protection dispels fear and instills boldness to overcome obstacles. Restoration and renewal. Psalm 23 speaks of God's role in restoring the soul and bringing refreshment to the weary. In times of spiritual dryness or exhaustion, meditating on the Psalm's promises can bring renewal and revitalization to one's faith and spiritual vitality. Gratitude and contentment, reflecting on God's abundant provision and blessings, such as preparing a table and anointing with oil, fosters a spirit of gratitude and contentment in believers. It encourages them to recognize and appreciate the goodness and generosity of God in their lives. Hope for eternity. The Psalm's closing affirmation that goodness and mercy will follow the believer all the days of their life, and the prospect of dwelling in the house of the Lord forever offers hope for eternity. It reminds believers of the ultimate destination of their journey and everlasting relationship with God in His presence. Overall, Psalm 23 brings comfort, assurance, guidance, renewal, and hope to believers, making it a source of solace and strength for individuals facing life's challenges. On our journey to find protection and peace in the Bible, we are reminded that God is our inspiration and hope. In trust and loyalty, we can find comfort and peace in God's heart, even in the most difficult times of our lives.